There's a moment, quiet and often unexpected, when you pause mid-step, mid-sentence, or even mid-life, and a question rises from somewhere deeper than thought. Whose life am I really living? It doesn't always come with drama. Sometimes it arrives while you're folding the laundry, or watching someone else's joy from a distance, or lying awake in the early morning when the house is still and no one is watching. And in that silence, the realization flickers. Maybe I've been moving, but not arriving, doing but not truly living. Some people nod when they hear this, quietly, as if they've known it all along. Others may resist, because it challenges everything they've worked so hard to hold together. And that's okay. Truth does not demand belief. It only asks to be noticed. So today, let us do something simple, but not small. Let us sit together, just you and me, for a little while, not to fix anything, but to see more clearly. Like two old friends resting under the soft shade of a tree, let us open the pages of this moment and listen for the quiet truths, those lessons that often arrive late in life, not because we were foolish, but because life only whispers them when we're finally ready. If even one of these truths finds its way to your heart today, then this time we share will not have been in vain. Now come, let us begin. Part 1. Learning to think, not just repeat. There's a story I once heard from an old monk, living in the hills of Chiang Mai. He was quiet, eyes like still water, and when he spoke, you didn't just hear words, you felt them ripple through you. One afternoon, as we sat under a banyan tree that had clearly seen more seasons than either of us ever would, I asked him what he thought the greatest sorrow was in a human life. He didn't answer right away. He reached down, picked up a dry leaf, held it between two fingers, and said, "To wake up near the end and realize you never truly lived your own thoughts." And oh, how true that feels, doesn't it? Think back for a moment. From the time we were small, we were told how to sit, how to speak, how to color inside the lines. We were praised when we followed, and corrected, sometimes quite harshly, when we strayed. At school, we memorized what the book said. At home, we listened to what we were told was best for us. And somewhere along the way, in all that obedient learning, the wild, curious spark inside us, the one that asked, "But what if?" or "Why?" began to dim. Have you ever noticed how deeply rooted that pattern is? Even now, many years and milestones later, you may still hear that inner voice, timid, almost shy, hesitating to question what feels normal. You might agree to things that don't sit well with your soul, nod along in conversations where your heart quietly rebels, not because you are weak, but because you were trained, from the very beginning, to value peace over presence, agreement over authenticity. But the Buddha taught that right view is the beginning of all wisdom, not the borrowed view, not the culturally accepted one. Your view, a view cultivated by looking deeply, not at what the world says is true, but at what your own heart confirms through mindful awareness. There's a well-loved story from the Buddhist texts about the Calamus, a group of villagers who were confused by the many teachings of wandering ascetics. Everyone claimed to hold the truth, so they asked the Buddha, "Whom should we believe?" And the Buddha, rather than preaching his own word, told them, "Do not go by reports, by traditions, by hearsay, but when you know for yourselves that something is wholesome, blameless, praised by the wise, and when practiced leads to well-being and happiness, that is when you should accept it." Now that is revolutionary. Even more so today, in this modern age, flooded with opinions and images. How many of our thoughts are truly our own? How often do we pause and ask, "Do I believe this because I've seen it with my own eyes, and felt it in my own bones, or simply because it's what I've always heard. Here's something worth reflecting on. Are your thoughts companions, or are they echoes? I remember an elderly woman I once guided through meditation. She was in her 70s, had raised 3 children, kept a house, and was the kind of neighbor who brought soup to anyone in need. She told me, during a quiet moment, I spent so many years trying to be good, but I never asked what good meant to me. And when she finally did, when she let herself question what had always been unquestioned, she said it felt like opening a window that had been shut for decades. The light hurt at first, but then it warmed her. Thinking, real thinking, isn't loud or argumentative. It's not about proving a point. It's about touching something sincere and unshakable inside you. It takes courage. It takes stillness. It takes being willing to stand alone in the clearing of your own truth, even when others are walking confidently down the crowded path. And yes, it can feel unsettling, but discomfort isn't a sign of being wrong. It's often the signal that something within you is beginning to awaken. So let me ask you gently, what thoughts are you still carrying that were never really yours? Which ideas have stayed with you out of habit, not heart? And if no one told you what to believe, what would you believe now? Take your time. These are not easy questions, but they are holy ones. Let us now continue and gently step into the next truth, one that lives in the quiet space between what we long to know and what we're often afraid to see. Part 2. Choosing truth over comfort. There's a story, an old one, simple yet quietly piercing. A man was wandering through a village, worn from his travels and thirsty from the heat. He came upon a monk who sat beneath a fig tree, serene and silent. The man approached and asked, "Master, what is the truth?" The monk looked at him, smiled gently, and poured a cup of water from a nearby pot. But before handing it over, he said, "Be careful. The truth is like this water, clear and refreshing, but it cannot be swallowed all at once." Many of us in the course of our lives learn to seek comfort, not truth, and not because we are selfish or weak, but because comfort feels familiar. It's warm, it's soft around the edges, and it doesn't ask much of us. It tells us we're fine just the way we are. It lulls us, like a well-worn lullaby, into believing that change can wait. And for a while, that's enough, until one day, it isn't. The truth, unlike comfort, is not always kind at first glance. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't sugarcoat. Sometimes it arrives like cold wind through an open window, unexpected, jarring, even painful. It shakes the walls we've built around ourselves. But make no mistake, that breeze, that sudden chill, is sacred, because it's the beginning of waking up. I once knew a man, quiet, thoughtful, lived alone after his wife passed. He was the kind of person who always smiled when others spoke, but rarely shared his own thoughts. One day, during a retreat, he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "For years I told myself I was at peace, that I liked the quiet, that I didn't need much. But the truth, I was just scared. Scared of being hurt again, scared of feeling too much." He had mistaken numbness for peace, and when the truth finally knocked, he said, "It felt like grief, but what followed was life." Isn't that something we all do? We protect ourselves with stories, small and large. "I'm fine. It's not worth the trouble. This is just how life is." We tell ourselves these things not because they are true, but because they spare us the discomfort of facing what lies underneath. And yet, deep down, We feel the weight of unspoken truths. We know when something's off. Our body tightens, our sleep becomes restless, our laughter loses its sparkle. In the Dhammapada it is said, "There is no fire like lust, no grip like hatred, no net like delusion, no river like craving." What a profound reminder. Delusion, especially the kind that dresses itself up as comfort, is one of the greatest hindrances to awakening. It's a net we don't see until we've already been caught. And still, the truth waits. It doesn't push. It doesn't chase. It stands quietly, at the edge of your awareness, like an old friend who knows you've needed time. But sooner or later, truth enters, sometimes through a diagnosis, sometimes through a loss, sometimes through an ordinary morning that suddenly feels unbearable. And when it does, you may weep, not because the truth is cruel, but because you waited so long to welcome it in. Here's something to consider. What parts of your life have been shaped by comfort rather than clarity? What have you kept simply because it felt easier than questioning it? And if you laid all the masks down, what would your face say in silence? The beauty of this path is that it doesn't ask us to leap. It invites us to step, one moment of truth at a time, one breath of honesty, even if it trembles. And so we walk gently forward into a truth that many of us spend years trying to avoid, but which holds one of the greatest gifts of all, the quiet unveiling of who we really are. Let's now enter the next chapter together, where the stories we tell ourselves fall away, and pain, once feared, becomes our most faithful teacher. Part 3. Pain is not the enemy, but the teacher. Years ago, in a quiet village, cradled between rice fields and low mountains, there lived a woman who came daily to the temple to offer flowers and incense. She never spoke much, never asked for teachings, but one day, as the sun was beginning to set, she remained seated long after everyone else had left. I walked over and asked if she wished to talk. Her voice trembled like old paper. She said, "I have known much pain, too much. I came here hoping it would go away. But all this time it stayed, quiet, but never far." She paused, then asked, "Does pain ever truly leave?" I looked at her for a moment, then shared the story of Kisa Gautami. Kisa was a young mother in ancient India who lost her only child. In her grief, she wandered from house to house, begging someone, anyone, for a medicine to bring her baby back to life. Eventually, someone sent her to the Buddha, and he, with deep compassion, told her he could help, but she must first bring him a mustard seed from a house that had never known death. With hope swelling in her heart, Kisa knocked on every door she could find, and every family welcomed her. But in each home she heard the same story. Yes, we have mustard seeds, but no, we too have lost someone. Father, mother, child, friend, every door held a memory of sorrow. By the time she returned to the Buddha, empty-handed, her eyes were no longer wild with grief. They were soft. She had learned the truth not from a sermon, but from the thread of pain that stitched every human life. And in that moment, her healing began. You see, pain is not the enemy. It is a mirror. It shows us where we are still holding on, where we are still afraid, where something inside us is asking to be seen. Most of us, when we feel pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, do everything we can to push it away. We distract ourselves, numb ourselves, even shame ourselves for not being stronger. But pain, like a child left crying in another room, only grows louder when ignored. And yet when we turn toward it, when we say, "Yes, I see you, I feel you, I'm not running anymore," something changes. The pain may not vanish overnight, but it begins to soften. It begins to teach. One man once told me, after surviving the loss of his brother, for a long time, I hated the pain. I wanted it gone. But now I see it brought me closer to what matters. It taught me to listen more, love more. It made me real. His voice cracked when he said that last word, real, because pain, when fully felt, strips us of pretense. It humbles us, and in doing so, it brings us into authentic contact with life. As the Buddha taught, to live is to suffer is to understand is to be free. Not suffering for the sake of suffering, but suffering as a doorway, a passage, a sacred unveiling. So let me ask you this: what pain in your life have you been trying to avoid? And what might happen if instead of running, you simply sat down beside it, like an old friend? What might it be trying to show you, not to harm you, but to heal you? I don't ask these questions lightly. Some wounds run deep, some sorrows feel endless. But within each ache is a seed that, when tended with attention and care, can grow into the most beautiful strength. And so, we breathe, and we stay. Not because it's easy, but because this, right here, is where the transformation begins. Now, let us turn gently toward another truth, one that echoes through our culture, our conversations, and our choices. The truth about kindness and the strength it must stand beside. Part 4. Kindness without strength is not peace. There's an old tale from the Zen tradition, passed down in hushed tones among those who have served as teachers for many years. It tells of a soft-spoken monk who lived in a forest temple near the edge of a bustling town. The townspeople loved him, not for his words, but for his quiet presence. He helped carry water for the elderly. He fed the stray dogs when no one else cared to. He never asked for anything, just smiled, bowed, and gave. One summer, a group of travelers passed through and noticed the monk. They began taking advantage of his gentleness, eating the offerings left at the altar, disrupting the meditation hall with loud voices and careless laughter. The monk said nothing. When his fellow monks asked why he didn't stop them, he simply replied, "Is it not my practice to be kind?" Eventually, the temple grew unruly, the stillness faded, and the elder who oversaw the monastery visited. After hearing the story, he said only this: "To be kind to a snake without strength is to invite it into the nursery." That may sound harsh, but the deeper teaching is clear. Kindness without strength is not peace, it is surrender. Many of us, especially those who carry gentle hearts, were taught that being good meant being agreeable, that turning the other cheek meant turning away from our own needs, that love meant giving endlessly, even when the well had run dry. And somewhere along the way, we began to believe that saying no was unkind, that protecting our energy was selfish, that drawing boundaries was something only harsh people did. But here's the truth. Dear one, true kindness cannot survive without protection. Think of a garden. You water it, you nurture it, you tend to each blossom. But what happens if you never put up a fence, never pull the weeds, never protect the roots from trampling feet? The garden does not grow stronger through exposure. It withers. Your heart is no different. The Buddha often spoke of wise effort and right action. These were not passive principles, they were rooted in discernment. He did not teach blind compassion, he taught compassion with clarity. He taught us that peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of balance. I once sat with a woman in her 60s, a nurse who had spent her life tending to others. She said, "I've been kind my whole life, and somehow I feel like I've been used up, like I was just a convenience for other people's comfort." There were tears behind her eyes, not of regret, but of awakening. She wasn't angry. She was remembering herself. "I think," she said, "I forgot to be kind to me." And maybe that's where it begins, with the gentle, radical act of including yourself in the circle of your compassion, of realizing that your yes means nothing if you never honor your no, of understanding that love without limits isn't love, it's erosion. Let me ask you now, with warmth and without judgment, where in your life have you confused softness with strengthlessness? When was the last time you protected your time, your energy, your peace? Not out of selfishness, but out of deep self-respect. What would it look like to be kind and unshakably grounded at the same time? This is not a call to become cold or distant. No, quite the opposite. It is an invitation to become fiercely loving, to honor your tenderness by guarding the space it lives in, to stop mistaking being used for being useful, to stand not above others, but firmly beside yourself. As we continue on, let us carry this awareness like a small flame in the palm of our hand, a kindness that no longer collapses under pressure, but stands strong, rooted in presence and truth. And now, let us walk together into the shadowed places, the parts of us we've hidden, rejected, or quietly exiled, because until we bring light to them, they will find their own ways to speak. Part 5. The darkness within doesn't need to be banished. Just seen, there is a temple in the hills of northern Japan, tucked between misty pine trees and streams that whisper ancient secrets. Within its inner hall, there is no golden statue, no lotus throne. Instead, there is a mirror tall, wide, weathered by time, and inscribed beneath it are just 5 words. Look deeply, do not look away. I remember standing in front of that mirror many years ago. At first I expected to see something spiritual, perhaps even sacred, but what I saw instead was myself, my tired eyes, my tightened jaw, the doubt I carried, the shame I'd never spoken aloud. It startled me how much I had hidden, even from myself. And that, my friend, was the beginning of a different kind of awakening. Because here is the truth: no one tells us when we begin the journey inward. We are not just light, we are shadow too. And the shadow is not the enemy, it is the forgotten part of our wholeness. From a young age, we learn which parts of ourselves are welcome. We are praised for being patient, generous, agreeable. But anger, too dangerous. Grief, too heavy. Jealousy, selfishness, fear, those must be locked away, hidden behind polite smiles and well-timed laughter. Over time, we become curators of an image. We edit ourselves until even we forget what lies beneath. But as the Buddha taught, nothing hidden stays silent forever. The seeds we bury continue to grow, just not always in the ways we expect. The parts of ourselves we disown begin to whisper. They show up in sudden outbursts, quiet sabotage, a numbness we can't explain. We think something is wrong with us. We think we're broken, but what's really happening is this: the shadow is trying to be seen. Carl Jung, a Western voice who echoed many truths of the Dharma, once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And in Buddhist psychology, this is mirrored in the practice of metta, loving kindness, not just toward others, but toward every part of ourselves, especially the ones we've pushed away. I once sat with a man in his late 70s, retired, sharp-minded, but heavy-hearted. He told me he had always been seen as the strong one in his family, the one who didn't cry, didn't complain, always held it together. But after his wife passed, something broke open. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said. "I thought I was strong, but maybe I was just hiding. What I offered him and now offer you is this. You were never wrong to hide. We all do what we must to survive, but hiding is not the same as healing. And you don't have to keep everything locked away now, not anymore." The path of awakening isn't about perfection. It's about integration. It's about holding both our gentleness and our fury, our wisdom and our confusion, our joy and our wounds. When we meet those darker parts with softness, not shame, they begin to soften too, like a clenched fist that loosens in warm water. So I ask you now, gently, what part of you have you kept in the shadows, believing it was unworthy of love? What would it feel like to bring it into the light? Not to change it, but simply to understand it. Can you imagine speaking to your pain, your anger, your fear, the way you'd speak to a scared child who just wants to be held? Because that's all it is, that shadow inside you. It's not a monster. It's a child who never learned how to say, "I hurt." In one of the Buddha's teachings, he reminds us that only when we make peace with the full truth of who we are, can we begin to know true liberation. Not a bliss that floats above the messiness of life, but a freedom that lives right in the middle of it, gritty, honest, and whole. Let us not be afraid of what we find in the mirror. Let us not turn away when the reflection grows uncomfortable. Let us stay, even for just a breath longer, and in that stillness, let us remember what is seen with compassion loses its power to harm. Part 6. Freedom is found in living truthfully. There's a story I once heard in the hills of Ladakh, where winters are long and silence is thick. A young novice monk had been practicing diligently for years. He meditated at dawn, swept the temple grounds, recited every chant by heart. But despite all this, he carried a deep restlessness. One day he asked the abbot, "Master, I've done everything right. Why do I still feel so far from peace?" The old monk smiled, not the kind of smile that answers, but the kind that invites deeper looking, and said, "You've lived your practice, now live your truth. You see, dear one, many of us spend years, decades even, doing everything we thought we were supposed to do. We were kind, we were responsible, we showed up for others, kept our promises, stayed out of trouble, and yet, somewhere beneath the surface, something never quite settled, a quiet ache, a sense that we were performing a life, not truly inhabiting it. This is not failure, this is conditioning. From a young age, we are taught to please, to play roles, to say the right things, even if they aren't our truth. We learn that approval is safety, that to be loved, we must be agreeable, palatable, even invisible. And so we shape ourselves like water to fit whatever container life pours us into. But the cost of that shaping is high, because one day we may wake up and realize that the person others love isn't fully us. It's a version, a reflection curated to be accepted. And when that realization comes, it's like standing in a room full of people and still feeling deeply alone. There's a teaching in the Buddhist tradition: better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. And that one word, for many of us, might be enough. Enough of pleasing, enough of pretending, enough of dimming your light, so others can stay comfortable in their shadow. I once guided a woman through a mindfulness retreat. Late 60s, elegant, the kind of person who had always known how to host, how to smile at the right moments. But on the third day, during silent walking meditation, she simply stopped, placed her hand on her chest, and whispered, "I don't want to perform anymore." She didn't mean for anyone else to hear, but I did. And in that moment, I saw a soul coming home to itself. To live truthfully is not to be loud. It is not to be rebellious for rebellion's sake. It is to stand in the quiet center of your own being and say, "This is who I am," without apology. Not to hurt others, but to stop hurting myself. That kind of truth doesn't always please people. In fact, some will walk away, not because you've done something wrong, but because your authenticity disturbs the stories they've told themselves. Your presence challenges the equilibrium of relationships that depended on your silence. And yes, it will hurt. But the pain of being misunderstood is far lighter than the weight of being unseen. Let me ask you gently, from one human to another, where have you been hiding simply to be accepted? Which parts of yourself are tired of being quiet? And what would it mean for the rest of your days to stop shrinking and start standing? This is the liberation the Buddha pointed to, not a distant heaven, not a life free of all sorrow, but the freedom that comes from no longer living a lie. The deep, grounded, embodied peace that arises when you no longer have to remember who you're supposed to be, because you've finally remembered who you are. And that, dear friend, is not the end of your path. It is the true beginning. So let us close this chapter with an open heart, not chasing anything, not seeking perfection, just returning, breath by breath, to the sacred truth of being fully, honestly, and beautifully you. So, here we are. If you've walked with me through this quiet hour, then you've touched truths that many people only begin to glimpse after a lifetime of moving, giving, and carrying more than they ever had space to feel. We began with a simple, yet profound question: whose life have I truly lived? From there we journeyed through the hidden architecture of our days, the way we've been shaped to follow without asking, to seek comfort over clarity, to run from pain instead of listening to it. We looked gently at the ways our kindness, when not protected by strength, can leave us vulnerable to being emptied. We turned toward the shadow within, not to silence it, but to finally understand it. And we ended by standing quietly in the place where freedom begins, not by changing who we are, but by daring to live as who we've always been. These are not small truths. These are not light ideas. They are deep waters, quiet, yes, but capable of carrying the whole of our lives. And now I invite you to rest with them, not to rush into action, not to fix, but to feel. Perhaps one part of this reflection landed more deeply than the rest, a sentence that lingered, a story that stirred something unspoken. If so, hold it gently, let it echo. These are not teachings to memorize, these are reminders. Pebbles placed softly along the path you're already walking, meant only to help you come home to yourself. Because in the end, the most important spiritual journey is not upward or outward, but inward. So let me ask you, in the spirit of quiet companionship, what part of you is longing to be seen, not by the world but by you? Where in your life have you been performing, when your soul is aching to simply be? And if you pause today, not to chase anything, but to truly arrive, what would you find waiting inside you? The second half of life is not meant to be a time of decline. It can be a time of deep unfolding, of soft strength, of living more truthfully than ever before. You haven't missed your moment. You're not behind. You're right on time. And so, dear friend, as we part for now, I leave you with this. May you walk gently through the second half of life, not chasing titles, not rehearsing roles, but arriving fully with yourself. May your days be less about proving and more about being, less about becoming someone and more about remembering who you are. If this time together stirred something in you, I invite you to stay close. Subscribe to Quiet Wisdom if you haven't already. This space is for you, for those who wish not to be taught, but to be touched, for those who believe that life even in its quietest hours, still whispers truths worth listening to. Until next time, be well, be whole, be home.